Welcome to Activate Your Life, Awaken Your Soul's Expression. This is the podcast that goes deep into the realms of astrology, human design, homesteading, permaculture, self-sufficiency, inner work, and inner healing, everything that's supporting your own inner awakening. I am your host, Erin Esser, and it is an honor to be your guide on this amazing journey of self-discovery and transformation. Welcome to Activate Your Life. In just a moment, you're going to hear a conversation that Meredith Swaim and myself had on the nodal switch. Now, what that means is that the last year and a half, so you can go back into your life a year and a half from now, and I'm recording this in July of 2023. And you can see what's changed in your life, what has shifted, what has moved out in your life, and what have you moved towards. That's what these nodes are about. There's a north node and there's a south node. And they just switched from Taurus being in the north node and south node Scorpio to north node Aries and south node Libra. So we have a discussion here on all about this shift, what you can expect in your own life, what we're already experiencing. We're sharing this, and what could possibly be happening in the world over this next year and a half. This is a major shift, and they shifted on July 17th of 2023. So you can look at your calendar as well too and see, what did I feel at that time? Did I feel any shift? And that was on the day of a new moon as well too. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and we had a great discussion around this nodal shift. I hope you enjoy this conversation, and you can find Meredith's information in the show notes below. Enjoy.
Hey there, this is Meredith, and I am an intuitive and an astrologer based out of the mountains of North Carolina. And today I'm here with a really good friend of mine who has been, just kind of like a pillar of stability for me, regardless of whether or not she realizes it during this time. And so I just wanted to come on here and talk to her about the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra, which transitioned yesterday, July 17th of 2023, and will go until January 12th of 2025. And so hi, Erin, how are you doing?
I'm okay. How about you, Meredith?
I'm all right. We're just doing the best. Yesterday there was a transition, right, of the nodes. And I kind of just wanted to see like how you were doing, what the energy, like you're feeling from it, and like how you're navigating it, like just before we get into like some of the broader implications.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward too, because I know we're going to be touching on, the medical astrology aspect that you have to share and all that. And so I'm excited to get to that as well too, with this time. But I guess like personally for me, just feeling into it, yesterday we talked a little bit, and the analogy that I had yesterday was it's kind of like a plane, where I'm like, I kind of felt like I was running some errands yesterday afternoon, and it felt kind of like I didn't feel like landed, like a plane, right? That like is coming in for a landing, right? You've arrived in the city that you're going to, but you're not really there yet. Like you're on the runway, you're still maybe in the plane, you're, taxiing up to the gate, you're even still maybe in the airport. And sometimes the airport is a little ways out of any town that you're in. So you're kind of getting a feel, but not really like grounded and landed. And that's kind of how I felt yesterday with this. And I guess this morning waking up, I'm really feeling, I guess for myself, especially with Aries and, and I want to definitely touch on the whole head aspect of this, because I think it's so applicable, because when you were saying this just before we were talking, I feel that like I'm kind of feeling this pressure.
Like head pressure.
Yeah. And so I feel like it's really going to be a test for ourselves in a way of like, or maybe test isn't the right word, but an awareness for each one of us of like, how much are we really in our head, right? And how much are we like, are we getting so wrapped up in our head and the stories and just everything that can literally drive us insane and our relationships, right? If we want to look at the Libra, axis too, like, and just using that like as a mirror. And I'm feeling that just now, like I had to ground into like my body. And I feel like there's going to be this like kind of tension between our mind and our body as we're moving into this. I'm feeling that anyway this morning. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I don't know, I'm interested in like how you're, responding to the energy as well too.
Yeah, it's interesting because Aries is the head, and in astrology, like it governs like the top part of the brain. Like basically, like there's, if you go like, okay, so here are your eyes, and then you go back, there's like an occipital crest that like, it's like basically like where like your vision system is in the back of your brain. Everything that is below that is like Taurus territory. So like everything above that is Aries territory. So the eyes tend to fall into the Aries category. And I think it's interesting, right? Because I wouldn't think of Aries as a sign that's like classically super heady. But because it does rule the head, there's this, and Libra is extremely heady and extremely like sitting, like there's a, something that I've had to learn to do is to not just like sit and think and plan and like strategize and like, what do I want to do today? Like, how do I want to do it today? And like, then I've sat there for like, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours and like haven't done anything, And so I think that Aries is actually like, when I look at it, it's not, okay, yes, it does govern the head, but it is very embodied and it's very instinctual. And it's like it's not really operating with the story. Like, the last 2 boyfriends that I've had Aries moon, and both of them have said to me that they wake up every morning and it's like a new day and it's a new morning. And while I extremely doubt that personally, like, I think that we all kind of have the tendency to like carry things over, like from like yesterday into today and then today into tomorrow. Like, I just think that human beings are like record keepers. And so we kind of automatically, we hold all of these stories, I guess, like within our, within our DNA, within our system. And that's a normal, real, true thing. But, there's this concept of like, well, it's a new day. And so we're going to get started in a new energy. And I think that very much like belongs to Aries. But yeah, you asked me how I was or like how I've been feeling this. And, I think that the first thing that I've been feeling, and I'm just going to be quite honest, is like some level of like rage. There's something that I have going on and I've been feeling like anger in that space. And, the way that I've like, cause I quit all of my vices thanks to like Saturn and Pisces earlier this year and other things. And the way that I've been responding to that is by exercising. So I've kind of like already been like doing the North Node in Aries thing in a way where I've just been like, all right, fuck it. Like I have to do something to get out of my head into my body. So I went for a really long bike ride yesterday, and then I came home and I danced for like an hour and a half, like to dance hall and to hip hop and like all of this, and I'm like, and I feel great today because of that. But I think that, yeah, like that's how I've been feeling, is I've been like wanting to move more, wanting to, think less actually, I mean, and yeah, I think I didn't even think about like talking about that before we came on here about the South Node in Libra being an air sign, being very erudite, very indecisive, like not really sure, like which way to go or what to do. Like the North Node moved into Aries yesterday, and I was like, I know what I need to do. And of course, I think the way that this interacts with our own astrology matters a lot because, I'm a Leo. I have a lot of fire in my chart. I'm a Sag rising. So for me, like the fire of it all feels very natural, feels very like cohesive with the rest of me, I guess. And I think the North Node in Taurus was very slow, very day by day, very slow, it's like, in a way, it held us in a steady place where I feel the loss of that as of whatever day yesterday. Yeah. So, so I'm just curious, like, what do you think are like some of the most important things that like people need to know or be aware of on that like individual level where like, okay, so we've talked about like the need to get out of your head into your body, out of indecision into action. kind of balancing like the head and the body. But I'm just curious if there's anything else that kind of like that has come to you or, that you desire to share.
Yeah. I mean, a couple things. I feel like reflection is such a necessary tool to move forward. Right. And so like, I feel though, before we could even move forward, it's like taking inventory of what was the last 18 months, right? With this North Node in Taurus, right? Like, what were our dreams? What were we wanting to, like, what could we envision, right? Because Taurus is very sensual. It's very senses, right? Like, what were we wanting to build? What were we like desiring? What was our like heart, our soul, like kind of being pulled towards? Because now it is the time to then now, like you're saying, like move towards that, right? And not allow the potential, the Scorpio, like kind of control through manipulation, shadow part of Scorpio, right? Like not releasing things, like not allowing that then to bring us into a place of indecision, right? Because of the whole Libra aspect of like, well, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could, it's like kind of weighing all options, which is great. But like, I think that we know by now what we want, like, and that's my, I guess, experience and thought. And it is taking action on that. And there is going to be fear that is going to come up. And I feel like even especially like now Chiron too, right? Like it just like, there's going to be those wounds, those like all of that stuff that we get to move through. And I feel like just kind of weighing that out, like, oh, are we really taking action? And is it like conscious action? Is it focused action versus are we sitting, on the sidelines? Are we sitting just in this muck of like out of fear? So it's really paying attention to that balance, I feel. And so it's taking an inventory, right? And reflecting on these last 18 months. Where have you changed? Where have you grown? Where do you still need to, like, where are the remnants of things that like still need to be maybe like cleared up, or taken a look at. And I think that right now too, as we're moving forward, as we do that, like the reflection, I think now it's like, it's going to be, who are we and what are our relationships like mirroring back to us? I mean, it's in this most simplistic way, but I feel like it's going to be more about like, and I want to hear about what you're saying as far as like the villain part of it, because I do feel that we have to put ourselves first.
Yeah.
As we're moving forward, because when we do that though, in a conscious way, and there's going to be people who are going to be like, well, that's so selfish and whatnot, but no, it's not.
Oxygen mask.
Exactly. The oxygen mask. Exactly. And when we do it in a conscious way, when we know what we want and we're moving forward in that space without trying to cater to the wounds and the emotions, right, of others, or our fears of like, well, what will they think? Then we're actually in full alignment with everyone and our environment too. Around us, whether somebody sees that or not, like that's irrelevant. And so it's really being confident in those actions that we're stepping into and forward versus, or no matter what, like, somebody, may or may not say, and then recognizing who's around you, like who is the community around you supporting you moving forward, who's trying to pull you back, right? Like in those ways as well too. It's going to be, if it hasn't already become very evident for people, it will be highlighted, I feel now. And who are we and how are we moving in that? How are we embodying that space, within ourselves? And so that's kind of in a nutshell. And so I'm curious, like you had mentioned before we talked about the whole villain. I don't know. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because is that kind of around this, or is that something?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of interesting that, okay, I want to bring up like some of the things that I've realized from like the last 18 months. So there tends to be a bit of a discrepancy in the spiritual community where there's some people who are like love and light only. And then there's some people who are like shadow workers, right? And there's like, there's not really within these two polarity, like there's not really a whole lot of balance. And what I've noticed is that there's a lot of people, it's like the idea of like going to therapy for like 7 years and just like, sitting there
looping,
and, like wallowing and like really like wearing it all and like, oh, I do this behavior because of this, and this, because of my trauma and because I've had so much happen to me. And like, I think that you and I have both experienced just like as 6/2s in our human design, like so much shit, especially before the age of 30, that we're just aware that like there's really, it's like the last 18 months, I think was a really good indicator for me anyway, at least in my personal life, of like who's really going on this journey with me. Because for me, like I I can't. The like emotionally masturbatory, like, I understand as a person who is trying to be like somewhat balanced that there's both like light and dark, good and bad, whatever. But I'm not going to circle within like my own darkness anymore. Like that's something that I feel like we really had to schlep off. Like there was just the energetic potential was really set up for like trauma release and like letting go of some of that stuff. Like I feel, Aaron, in my spirit, like I let go of like decades, like lifetimes, like worth of just like, just stuff, right? Of course, the South Node was transiting my 12th. So that makes sense that I would feel that like I did let go of a lot of unconsciousness and a lot of like addictive stuff and like compulsive stuff. And I think that that was kind of the opportunity for everyone to do that, was like, to kind of like release that. And also like, within, of course, you and I kind of like have bonded a lot over like seeing things differently than some of our peers, like the whole kind of like conspiracy oriented, thought trails. And I think that, you and I, when I look at like the last 18 months and like our friendship and like what we've discovered about ourselves and each other, we both kind of pulled ourselves out of the like rabbit holes. If you think about like Scorpio being like the underground and like the hidden, and we both kind of like pulled ourselves out of that in favor of building something above ground and, maintaining a lot of like focused orientation on that, like you quite literally, because you're literally building on your land. And for me, I mean, in my own modest way, I feel like I've been at least building a mystery. When it comes to Aries, okay, so then we shift into this new energy with the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra. It kind of does still bring up and like carry forward like the energy of like victimization and of when I think of Aries, the highest expression, I think of taking full responsibility for your life. And, I think that with Chiron there's still, we all have to recognize that we have been severely wounded. And I think that that creates like openings in our field that then allow us to be like moved where we might not want to be otherwise like moved, right? Where, I saw a lot of people like, and this is really like since 2018, since Chiron moved into Aries initially, but in 2020, 2021, a lot of people appealing to the authority, right? A lot of people not wanting to do something different or like not belong, right? Or like, fearing for their survival, say in case they, were going to lose their job or like whatever. And I think that like, these, we all have them. So I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. And we're not like sitting here saying we're just musing, about this. But it's like, I think that with Chiron and Aries, we have to just assume that we have some of these openings and some of these weak spots. And we have to like, kind of like, just, maybe they're blind to us. Maybe they're not. Maybe we're very aware of what they are, but it's every day, I think, taking the action to work on those blind spots. And I think, oh my gosh, sorry, I'm just like yammering on now, but Aries is the ego identity and like the identification with certain things, right? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so this is not a normal North Node in Aries transit because Chiron is there. And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking to myself the different ways that ego is shows up and the different ways that we look at it as people that are like voices in the spiritual community in one way or another. And I'm thinking to myself like, okay, so what looks like ego for you might look different than what it looks like for me. Like for someone, ego might be pride. It might be arrogance. It might be like, well, I know this because I have, but for me, ego can honestly look like a shrinking response, like because of that Venus and Virgo in my chart, it can look like minimizing myself and like my own needs and like what, like minimizing my own voice, or it can look like sometimes like imposter syndrome. And so I think that we're all going to be kind of pushed towards like finding a healthy balance in our lives with what that is and the different ways that that shows up. Like, I don't think we necessarily need to kill our ego or ever like die to the self or anything, and that's the opposite of what we need to do right now, as far as I'm concerned. I think that this time actually presents a very significant pathway for self-discovery. And what I was saying about the villain era is that this is the death of the people pleaser and the opening of like the villain era, where I feel like a lot of people are held in relationships and in friendships and in familial connections where like their existence there hinges on them doing certain things and being a certain way and a certain person. And I think that for authenticity's sake, like we're gonna need to like really like that's just going to become like next to impossible, I think, to uphold some of those, oh, let me do that for you, oh, let me take care of that for you, oh, you know, yes, I will make myself less so that you can show up as your more, you know, like it's like we're not going to be able to really do that anymore, I don't think. And I feel that this is why I was saying like this is like out of the people pleasing era and into the villain era, because I think we're going to see a lot of people walking away from relationships. This is like the last call to get out of some of those romantic relationships, especially that have been like way too ongoing since before 2020. I think that like like our souls and our spirits are like actually like desperately trying to get us into more better, whatever, like into different situations for us that are more supportive. And, you know, there's certain bonds, I think, and like certain contracts, maybe, because Libra has contracts that have to be released. And thank you for, I know I can just, it's just, you bring up so many good points and then I get excited and Well,
I'd like to riff on that a little bit, like with the ego. So like, you know, you brought up the ego and how I like to look at the ego. And I remember my first program that I created back in like 2016, we talked about this because it's a big issue. Ego is a big thing in the spiritual community, right? Where a lot of people in the spiritual community, at least when I first kind of started delving into this, like, and I heard it mentioned the other day on a podcast, this new cage movement instead of new age, right?
Facts, yeah.
But it was like death to the ego, right? And the ego is horrible and really demonizing like our ego. And what I realized though, from my own experience, and this is what I brought in like to my first program with the women that I worked with, was like, our ego is it's not bad. How I view the ego, it's like, it's so related to working with our inner children, right? And it's like, it's the part of ourselves that wants to keep ourselves safe.
Right.
So when that ego comes up, right, of like that space where it's like we want to shrink back, like you were saying, right? Because there's something within us that doesn't feel safe if we were to speak out or if we were to express our needs or whatever, right? And so I always feel like whenever we feel that space, and I was born with Chiron in Aries, so like I'm going to be experiencing, you know, my Chiron return here in the next couple of years.
Nice.
So there is like this identity wound. Like I feel like anybody that like really experiences and like has like lived with that, like, and is born in that space, like there's something, it's almost like a hole in your armor, like that is like almost never gets like, it never really gets filled, I guess, so to speak. And I kind of like, even this just came up in the Bible, like even when Paul saw whatever, you know, the story of like his like always has this wound. I always think like, oh, that is like kind of the ego, or that might be the Chiron like wound, right? That like never can really be healed. And so we have to live with this. And I feel like it humbles us in a way. And being the fact that it's an Aries, you know, we're saying like we get to, the other thing that came up as you were saying, as you were talking, is we get to pay attention to when our ego is like trying to keep us safe and trying to like fight battles that maybe don't even need to be fought. So it is the rise of the mature warrior versus the immature warrior. And how I view that is the immature warrior is the one that's like flinging his or her sword at every little thing that looks like a threat, because like there's like the integration of all of our parts haven't been integrated yet, right? And so everything is a threat. We don't feel safe. And so somebody says something, we take it personally, right? We attack, right? And so that's like the immature warrior versus the mature warrior knows who they are. Right? They have their ego in check, because if we don't have a healthy ego, we can't say no. And so they know how to say no, right? And in a very like, and that no is a sentence, and they don't feel bad about it, right? But they don't say no just to say no. Also, like they're wise in how they show up in the world, and they know they have a sword, but they only like pull it out when they know their energy, when it's worth their energy and it's worth their time. So I feel like it's like such an identity thing. So with Chiron here, we're going to be this dance, right? Of like, oh gosh, am I like walking in this immature warrior space here where I'm just like have my sword drawn at every little thing that I'm, facing in life? Or am I going to have the courage, right? That's Aries too, right? This warrior, the courage to know like everything that comes to me, I'll be okay, I'll be safe, and I'll know, and I'm confident that I know what I need to draw my sword for, and when I need to just keep it in and preserve my energy and just keep going and not, so anyway, so those things came up for me as you were talking about all that. And I hadn't really thought about all that before. So I feel like we're going to really get a lesson, like, right, in this time of like, what are we spending our energy on, right? Like, how am I showing up in the world? And is this how I want to continue to show up? Or how can I show up in a new way, in a more embodied way? When there's going to be battles to fight. That's just life, right? But we get to have that discernment of like, this isn't worth my time, right? I mean, you think of the mature warrior, they're like, I'm not going to waste my time on you. We get to pick and choose our battles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to, you kind of motivated me because we were talking yesterday on the phone about like the generations that we most prefer. And for me, it seems like I have the most people, like when it comes to my relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, like everything, even the clients that I attract, I tend to jive or gel well, weirdly, with people with Pluto and Libra and Chiron and Aries. So I was motivated to look up just now. So sorry if I seem distracted. I was listening to what you said and definitely echo the sentiment of like we're seeking a space of maturity where a lot of people I feel like who talk about this are going to be like, just act, just do it. Like the way that kind of like colloquial astrology, like TikTok astrology gets like watered down and whatever. Yeah. So, but I looked up the dates of Pluto and Libra and Chiron and Aries. And I think that because I feel that, and I want to talk just a little bit about those two, because meanwhile I have there's a rooster that lives across the street from me. And it's like right now. And so it is it's interesting. And I just wanted to share that because I have so many people in my life with Chiron and Aries. And I want to say that the instinct to overextend and deny oneself is so strong in Chiron and Aries people. And Chiron has a weird orbit, right? So it stays for like 1 year, maybe 2 years in Chiron and Leo and Chiron and Virgo. And then it stays for like 8 years, 9 years, like right in Chiron and Aries and Taurus. It just has like this really weird, wonky orbit, which is very Chironic. If you think about it, it's like nobody really knows what it's doing. And so I was thinking about the Chiron and Aries generation and how it's like, I think that this might be like a true test for the people that were born specifically from 1969 until 1976, and that will be their Chiron return as well coming up if they haven't had it already, which is sort of that moment of like, okay, I cannot deny myself anymore. Like if I continue to do that, like I'm not going to live because, frankly, that is what it is of like, either you put yourself first and you prioritize your own needs or you die. Like that's what it is, And so I feel that with the North Node moving into Aries, I can kind of sense into a lot of choice points for these individuals that have this in their chart of like, okay, well, am I going to just like continue to put myself down and to like minimize what I need and like what I want? Or am I going to continue to overextend to everyone and everything that is like outside of me and just like let myself shrivel up like a prune and just that's it, And so the other thing is the Pluto and Libra generation, because I feel that, okay, so I have my Pluto in Scorpio, and in the last 18 months, I did have the South Node on top of my Pluto, which felt like a pretty massive release point. And, there's certain things with Pluto and Libra, like I feel like Pluto and Libra people, do you have your Pluto and Libra?
I sure do.
Sorry. I'm not trying to talk shit.
No, it's good. No, it's I'm not taking it personally.
So some people, most people, I would say that in the Pluto and Libra generation, which is roughly 1971 until 1984, have not known a healthy relationship in their lives, the majority. Not, maybe there's some exceptions that are listening to this, and that's fine. I'm not, making like just such a blanket statement, but I feel that the generational lesson is to navigate like this massive karma and relationships and like power battles and dynamics and, and like how like not really feeling like super safe, like giving yourself over to and like having like an equal proper exchange within relationship for one reason or another. And I think that's very individual, right? But so I think that actually the trending direction, in my opinion, is like we're kind of being moved, shepherded towards like having actual, like very authentic, genuine relationships with people that we can trust if we're in a crisis, or people who like, I mean, we're moving toward, in my opinion, a place that is more unconditional. It takes time to get there, like in the trending direction with Pluto and Aquarius, with a lot of this like Taurus energy, like Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus. I feel like we're moving towards a place where we're being encouraged actually to, find the others and to really like get with the right people. And I think that the South Node in Libra transit for the Pluto and Aquarius generation is going to be like, are you really going to allow like your own sort of like things and your own hangups and your own stuff about relationships to really like get in the way of like establishing a bond that is very real and very true? That seems to be something.
You mean the Pluto and Libra generation?
Yeah.
You mean those? Okay. Yeah.
Specifically from 1971 until like, 1984. I think in there it went into Scorpio for a second,
yeah.
So that's what I just wanted to share that, because I feel like these are two groups of people that are pretty sizable, probably really tune into both of our work, just because for some reason, I don't know. I know I'm younger, but like for some reason, most of my clients, most of the people in my life have both Chiron and Aries and Pluto and Libra. So I tend to like watch and like try to know and understand that generation pretty well. So do you have anything that you want to share?
Think that's,
and then I want to get into the medical and the world stuff. Like just, no rush.
For sure. No, I relate to that. I mean, I think that Pluto and Libra generation are here too, and Chiron and Aries. It's so related, right? It's like somewhere along the lines, I feel like their identity has been completely violated, right? And that shows up in relationships, right? Because then that space that can never really be filled, it's like we wanting a relationship to fill that, but then always constantly getting let down, right? Because then it's like the lesson in it, at least what I'm experiencing, is it all comes back to each one of us, right? It's like healing that space within us, recognizing and really starting with our own relationship to ourselves first and foremost, which also goes with, North Node and Aries as well too, right? Like it's going to definitely be more of a me focused type of, but not in an unhealthy way, right? That's not the whole idea of this. I feel like it's because when we act out of like the highest for ourselves, everything then is in alignment around us, regardless if somebody's pissed off or whatever, because we're choosing ourselves, right? But there's a balance in that, right? And so the other thing I see too, and I see this thread of people really, and we've talked about this, coming to the terms of there's a third way.
Oh,
and I don't know if that's
interdependent way. It's the like in relationships, is that where you're not like so far deep up each other's assholes, but you're also not like estranged from one another kind of thing?
I think that plays into it because it's a similar energy. I feel like there's so many things that are coming out in the world right now. Like, for instance, it's the bridging of like, you're seeing one side or another, and there's this bridge between the two to go, oh, well, I'm just trying to think of okay, so for the whole, since 2020, right? Somebody didn't like the hokey thing, right? And then automatically somebody assumes, oh, well, then you must want your everybody to die, right?
Die. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, no, that's not it at all. Like, I see all sides of the story here, of the narrative, and it's like kind of going another way versus identifying, right? I think identification is going to be a huge theme. What are we identifying with, right? Like, what are we identifying with, a side and then the dogmatic beliefs on this side or this side? Or can we see, do we have the vision, right? The eyes, right? To see all of it and go, oh, well, I'm not here and I'm not really over here, but I can see aspects. And this is probably a 6-2 thing also. And we're moving into a 6 line as well, too. The world is too over the next few years. But like, we're going to be seeing the bigger picture and choosing another way through it, because that's the only way we can. Yeah, it's like that third way or whatever we want to call it, right? Like, there's another way that doesn't, so I'm seeing this, like, literally, like, just different posts and different people. I'm feeling this myself. Like, people are starting to like go, oh, wait, there is more. I'm seeing more than just this or that. It's a both. We're moving into a both and type of world. Yeah. So I'm seeing that as well too. But yeah, I would love to get into the medical part of it.
Okay. So there's a couple of things that I want to share, like, just real quick with regard to the medical stuff. And then I would like to spend just like a little bit of time, because that's how I really feel like it should be, is like just spending just a little bit of time focusing on what's going on in the world, because you and I have spent a lot of time talking about it, and a lot of time I've spent a lot of energy predicting it. And so it's all out there from my perspective of like what I feel might be like on the horizon or whatever. And so, I've kind of taken myself out of that in a lot of ways. And I think that's also very North Node in Aries, of like, let me focus on my own individual universe and like the things that I can control. So I've had a few dreams about good morning. Sorry. I've had a few dreams about hemorrhagic fever and people having sort of like spontaneous brain bleeds, right? And so for me, I don't like that idea. Obviously, I think that sounds terrible, but I do think that as the North Node gets closer to Chiron, it really emphasizes the idea of like the head wound. I've also been seeing a lot of reports like, sort of like medical related about blindness. And I think that's also something that
interesting
might come up, like, increase in like intraocular pressure, like increase in, I feel that with the medical experiment that was done, frankly, I think that a lot of people are like beginning to have a lot of problems. And I think that, really like what I want to hammer home to people right now is that if you like have participated in the experiment, I love people dearly that have, and I like want nothing but the best healthy life for them. So what I've kind of been trying to hammer home is like the like thoughts that we think and the messaging that we tell ourselves, because certainly, it's like we can like also manifest and perpetuate these things. And we still have, I think, in my opinion, a level of like, when you talk to your body, when you talk to your cells, when you talk to, because that is what Aries is embodiment, right? And so regardless of like which side of the fence, like in terms of like, like participated or did not participate, or, maybe like love somebody who participated, right? It's like, we can kind of like, we can tell ourselves different messages, right? And, and so, and I think that a lot of like what to do with the eyes and the head has to do with feeling connected to God, like the crown, and so you can reinforce on a daily basis, like I am connected to everything that is, I am connected to creation, I am connected to God. If you are like a Christian, I am connected to Christ. If you're, a witchy woo pagan like myself, I am connected to the Great Mother, like, and there's a lot of ways that we can kind of reinforce that connection. And then with the eyes, it's like, what am I afraid to see? What am I not seeing? And this could be in my personal life or like in the macro. So the other thing is, okay, Libra is the kidneys, right? Well, I mean, I don't know if you knew that or not, but it is. And so I'm thinking to myself, what is the function of the kidneys compared to like, what is the function of, say, the family empath or the family black sheep or the family like doormat or whatever you want to say, right? Is like, the kidneys process out the toxins and for the body, and they get rid of like the undesirable things. They just make it go away, right? And so I think about like the people pleasing aspect of Libra, and like people who, like for myself, just because of my aura type as a projector and other things, I think of this, I can handle it. I can take whatever you got, like, and just transmute it for you, you know? And like, I think of how I've done that over the years in different situations without even realizing that I've been doing that, where I take on and into myself, like some of the negative things and some of the things that are ailing people and that they're struggling with. And I transmute them and I pass them out like the kidneys would, right, in the body. And so I think that right now we're going to have to think a lot more about like adrenal fatigue and like renal failure and things like that. And I would invite everyone to like look at, if they are struggling with their kidneys, like what are you processing that maybe isn't yours to process? I think that like when it comes to like personal responsibility and like Aries, it's like I'm taking responsibility for what I can take responsibility for. It's not to do with like, I'm not taking responsibility for what you have going on as much as, you know, Erin, you're one of my best friends. I love you so much, like more than most people. And at the same time, like there's certain things that are yours to carry and there's certain things that are mine to carry. And I think that this is where like that differentiation happens. Yeah. And especially as we move closer to 2027. So that's what I wanted to share with regard to medical.
I love that. And it's so funny because I didn't even think of that when I was sharing with you, even my experience this morning, when I said, you know, one of my kids, you know, made a couple choices to rescue some things. And I'm like, and I even said, I was like, I don't want to this is your responsibility. Even last night too, she wanted me to do something. And I was like, it's not my responsibility. This is yours. And you have got to hold up to that and like do that. And so like, that's interesting. Like how that has literally been a theme just since last night and into even this morning. It's just that responsibility aspect of it. It's like, it's not my responsibility. I have my own, and then getting frustrated. So I feel like even too, like as a generator, manifesting generator, I could speak to the manifesting generators and generators. If you find yourself frustrated, right? Feeling that frustration, it's a signpost. Yeah. To say, oh shit, what am I holding that's not my responsibility to hold for my children, my partner, my coworkers, my friends, whatever it is, right? Or just even for the world, right? Like, you know, I feel like this could even be like this, especially with, you know, different placements people have, like, I want to save the world now, right? Like, no, it's not your responsibility to save the world. I'm sorry. And I'm going to say this, and this is going to be snarky. Going to a movie is not saving anybody from anything.
Oh my God, fucking say that. Oh,
so it's like, this is about taking responsibility for your own life, your own inner growth, because the more that we do that ripples out into the world, and that does affect the other. The I affects the we and the you and the external, but we can't, like, it's the era, I think, of the whole bypassing shit and trying to like placate and trying
being
to
broken as fuck, like, and then like trying to heal the world somehow when you are literally like broken as fuck. No, it's a wrap on that, I think.
It can't. And I think the more we're in that energy, the more uncomfortable it's going to feel, which I think that is like the clue, right? Like for each one of us, you know, that, and we all can fall into it. Yeah, we all can fall into it, right? I mean, we all have like those weak spots and whatever, but I think that is what's going to be brought out too. And so many of us is where are like the little kinks in our quote unquote armor. And I'm not talking about armoring but where are those holes that we have to like repair or heal or just give attention to, you know, that we haven't, because that's our weakest link, and we're only as strong as where our weak spots are. And so I think all of those are going to be coming out to the forefront, where we're going to be able to see those in a different lens. And I think it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be painful too, you know, because
for sure,
you know, but I feel that is how we quote unquote save the world, because we're, you know, doing that for ourselves first. That's the connection, I feel like, between us, you know, the I, Aries, and the we, you know, Libra.
For sure. So I do have to let you go. I feel like I don't want to hold you too long, but I also want to just real fast, want to share what I've kind of been noticing the trending direction as far as like the world is concerned. It's a lot less optimistic, I feel like, than some of what like we've been talking about, because that's really like with the North Node in Aries, like the individual person and the individual world is where the magic is found. Like if you're looking for justice or whatever, like out there in the world, you're going to be waiting for a long time. So my opinion is that there's a lot of people who have been wearing rose-colored glasses on both sides of the aisle with regard to, institutions and things like this. And I think that South Node and Libra is the recognition that sometimes life is not fair. Like sometimes things are not fair. So when I think about like legal immunity, like as far as maybe like the pharmaceutical companies are concerned, right? I think about a bunch of people having some problems and then realizing, oh shit, like I really can't sue. Like there's really no legal recourse for me. And I have to like pay for all of these, say, medical expenses or whatever treatments that I need myself, right? There's also, I just feel like in terms of like people seeking justice and for the bad guys to go down, like what I have, like, it's very biblical what I'm about to say next, but what I trust in my heart is that like the universe takes care of karma or whatever, cause and effect, maybe not in the time frame that I might like it to, but it does. Like it's ultimately like I don't have to worry about justice being served and karma, like and judgment or reckoning being brought, because I actually do feel that there is like a reckoning coming, and that like we are kind of like moving towards the end of the last book of the Bible or whatever, like, in a coded, like sort of semi-metaphorical sense. Like I feel that there is a judgment coming, for lack of a better word. But I think that there is an illusion within that it's going to be some type of earthly judgment, that we're all going to see like all of the perpetrators of, the last 3 years, the last 1,000 years of like, what has been perpetuated on people. Like there's this illusion that we're going to see that happen. And I don't believe that. I believe that we might like live to see the last page of the book if we're lucky, right? Maybe, I don't think, that's just my opinion. And I think that like it takes a lot of like individual strength to recognize that and to keep going anyway, one foot in front of the other, I believe that the North Node in Aries is, and I've been talking about this, and this is why I don't even want to give that much attention to it, but I've been talking about the war narrative. I think that Biden getting the special service or whatever, maybe I'm using the wrong words, I don't know, like involved directly, like on the ground with, because people have been like, oh, we're in irregular warfare now, like it won't be a ground war. And I'm like, all right, that's fine that you think that, and that's whatever. But, I do feel that like it's going to escalate. And I think that we're going to, and this is just my opinion, and I'm sorry to like dash any dreams or whatever, but I do feel like we're going to see things more on US soil than in other wars, where like conveniently we've had like war in the Middle East and the US has just been like, oh, whatever, like that's just happening over there. And I think we're going to see it happen here, frankly. And, we've been like really edging on this proxy war with Russia, right? And we've been like, and there's like a financial aspect to that as well. But I think that, like people have been getting like way too comfortable with like war happening away from me and over there, and I think that at some point, and probably the North Node in Aries as like the expediter, it does come here. And so this is where we like all kind of, my opinion, right? Yep. This is where we toughen up. Like we have to take the cue from the fire signs in our lives. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a fire sign, but we have to like toughen up. We have to, I think that the feigned unity is going out the window too, now that the South Node is in Libra. So it's very clear to me anyway, who the traders are, it's always been clear. Like, I think that, people might recognize in this North Node in Aries square to Pluto what they have empowered. And I hope so, So that's the world stuff. I think that at the same time, there's all of these individual wins and there's all of these like individual blessings. So if we're expecting in the world or the justice system or whatever to see justice and to see like our wins, then we're going to be disappointed. But if we're looking to our own lives, we're not going to be disappointed. So
I agree with you on that one. Yeah. I think that then that's powerful. And I feel like our courage is going to be tested over this time for sure. And like you said, we're going to have to just toughen up, man. And like, it's kind of like the swift kick in the ass, a little bit, to stop identifying with our wounding so much, right? And being the victim of that space. Right. And also then like pointing the finger to the external to say, you did this, to go, oh my God, how did I participate in this too? Right? Like, what was my role in this too? Right? We all did. Absolutely. And I feel like that is why this justice, it's kind of is an illusion, like, because the more we point the finger to the external of like, they did this, they're going to, then we don't have to take responsibility for ourselves. Right. And that is this era, right, of like, oh my gosh, doesn't mean that there's not shitty people out there. Absolutely not. But this is part of doing the work, right? The internal work is going, well, how did what was my role in this though? Right. It's kind of like the Ho'oponopono. Yes, exactly. It's Ho'oponopono, and it's like, that's, and I mean, I think that is like, maybe that's the storyline for these next 18 months is the Ho'oponopono part,
I love that.
Right.
That's such a beautiful way to leave this off, I think. And, and Ho'oponopono is a Hawaiian prayer where you kind of imagine like whoever it is, whatever it is in front of you, and you say, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. It does. It like kind of has this way of like cleaning up like your side of the street, which I feel is an imperative right now. And so with that, I'm going to let Erin get to the rest of her day and the stuff that she has to do, because we're in that, that energy. But I love you. It was great to connect with you. And this was very cathartic. I feel really good about it. So love you.
Me too. Love you too. Thank you.
I'm going to post Erin's information in the description if you'd like to book a human design reading or sign up for her next course that is coming up, that is going to be kind of like combination of all of her other courses, and it's going to be amazing. And so thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Meredith.
Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes packed with wisdom and insights that will allow you to experience life in a more empowering way. Until then, stay inspired, stay curious, and always ask the question, what else is possible that I've never thought of before? Take care.